Welcome to Seahawks Forever, powered by BetUS. Today, taking a look ahead to Sunday in Atlanta, Seahawks Falcons. Two teams trying to establish their candidacy, if you will, of being potential playoff teams. Both teams with more similarities than differences, and we're going to get into that today. John Yates of the Outta Your Falcon Mind podcast joins me next. We're going to preview this game on Sunday. This is Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
As promised, joined by John Yates of the Outta Your Falcons Mind podcast. And John, first of all, got to be the best podcast name that I've ever seen. Do you get credit for that, or who came up with that?
That is my podcast partner, Mike, all the way. When we first decided to do the show, we were like, we have to have a catchy name. We can't just be the same. It was literally the first thing out of his mouth. And I was like, that's it, period. We're done. That's it. So
it's so good. I envy people that can do that. I've never, creative fantasy football team names. I just always, why didn't I think of that?
No, 100%.
Fantastic. Yeah. How are things in Atlanta? You guys are 4-2, right? A lot of newness there. A lot of, as I mentioned in the intro, and you and I talked before we went live here about the similarities between these teams. But just start off with just an overview of kind of where you gauge this new Raheem Morris-led organization now 6 games into the season.
Yeah, I think we're in a good spot. We just came off 3 straight wins against division opponents, which is always great, and especially when, I don't know if you saw the Saints game last night, but that was just horrendous to watch. But, Falcons fans, we enjoyed it. But
you just can't escape Cody Barton. We know that as well here as anyone. He's a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, it's hilarious. But yeah, no, it's we like I said, I thought we might be 3-3, 4-2 at this point. That was kind of the hope. Starting off the season against the Eagles, and we had the Chiefs in there as well, and then we anticipated that the Saints game, no matter what's always going to be a tough game, and we know the Bucs are going to be a tough squad. So yeah, offensively, it's like that Pittsburgh game is so far in the distance now. That was just, everybody was a little bit scared because Kirk literally looked like he couldn't move at all. The offense had no rhythm whatsoever. And it was a tough defense to go against, but it was a really scary start for that first game. And then, since then, it's just been Zach Robinson, our OC, with Kirk, has been just getting their legs, getting their feet, and Kirk's developing more of a rhythm with the receivers, which, they played, I don't know about you guys, but we played 0 preseason snaps at all. The starters did, at least. So, their first couple of games were their first time really working together in a true game setting. So that's been, we're, like I said, we're really happy where we're at right now at this point. Now, of course, there's some things we could clean up, and things we could definitely do better, which we'll talk about. But yeah, we're in a good spot.
It's amazing how much that one difference in the win column makes. I've been saying this now for days. That Seahawks had that tough stretch, 3 games in 11 days. They lost all 3 of them after the 3-0 start. And we all knew here that the level of competition those first 3 weeks, especially at the quarterback position, wasn't the truest test that we could have for this new Mike McDonald-led defense. But man, that difference between 3-3 and 4-2 right now at this point of the season, if the Seahawks don't get that field goal block, they somehow pull things out against the Giants. They're 4-2. They're feeling a lot better, I think, here about it. But now we go into a game that I called this week, for the Seahawks anyway, must win. They dropped to 3-4, and then you look at the schedule coming up, the Bills the next week, and then you get into your division rivals, and that makes it really, really tough. But the more I look at these teams, the more similarities I see. We have 2 young head coaches, not the first time for Morris, but nonetheless, still one of the younger coaches in the league, both defensive-minded guys who took over teams that are loaded on offense in the backfield and with the weaponry around their quarterbacks, led by veteran quarterbacks who both have young backups with upside. And then on defenses that aren't living up to the standard we expect from these 2 coaches. What is going on there with the Falcons on that side of the ball?
Well, it's we haven't been able to stop the run, which I know you guys are familiar with this year as well. But this week, I know, just doing the research and watching some of the games that you guys have played, it's like, if Ryan Grubb doesn't want to run this week, then I don't know when he's going to want to run, because he should be able to get chunks of yards. And I don't know we play this defense in Atlanta. It's a very bend, don't break type thing. You hear it all the time, and it's annoying as hell to watch because, you can just get, and if Gino wants to take what's in front of him, he'll be able to dink and dunk all the way down the field. It's going to be there for him. That we've done a really good job preventing explosives, which is great. But then that seems to be kind of what the defense is, or at least Jimmy Lake, and who I'm sure the guys up in Washington are probably familiar with Jimmy Lake. Is he's really about not allowing those explosives, and which is that's great. But man, we will allow chunks of yards and let you go down the field. And in the last two games, what's funny is they'll make really good halftime adjustments. Against the Bucs, we allowed 6 points in the second half, and then again last week we allowed 3 points in the second half. So I don't know. I would love to see a full 4 quarters of maybe a little bit more aggressiveness and not playing so much off the ball. But we get these light boxes, especially out of 11 personnel. If you guys run out of 11 personnel a lot, then we're going to have a light box, and there's a good chance they're going to get plenty of yards. So it could be just who outrushes who this week.
Yeah. Seahawks have not been limiting explosives. In fact, 40% of the 49ers yardage on that Thursday Night Football loss last week came on 3 plays.
Holy
so very, very different story here in Seattle. Talk about, because certainly we do know Jimmy Lake from his time here at UW, an outstanding defensive coordinator, was given a shot at the head coaching job. That didn't work out great. But is given autonomy? Is Raheem Morris letting him call plays on defense and run things his way, or is Morris still have his hands all over that?
He's definitely still in those meetings, but Jimmy is calling the plays.
Okay.
So he's calling it. Raheem I think he's definitely grown, obviously, since the first go around, and even when he was interim coach with us for just a minute, after Dan Quinn was fired, I think he's kind of taken a bunch of things and say, you know what, I'm going to just kind of be the CEO type of coach, but still be he's in the quarterback room. He's all over the place. He's never just, but it's definitely Jimmy's, with probably a heavily influenced from Raheem, but he's letting Jimmy take the reins.
Let me put this up. This is the latest. This is what we know through yesterday anyway of some of the key injuries facing both teams. Seahawks look like they're going to be down to their second and sometimes third string secondary guys. Reek Woolen has not practiced. Trey Brown hasn't practiced. Doesn't look like either of those two are on track to play on Sunday, in which case Nehemiah Pritchett, the rookie out of Auburn, would start at one of those cornerback positions. And the team just had to put Artie Burns on injured reserve as well. So they're down 3 of their top 4 corners. And then still, we'll need to know more today whether Stone Forsythe will be ready to go at right tackle or not. If not, one of the bigger storylines going into this game will be, what do the Seahawks do at right tackle? Forsythe already their 3rd guy there. It's either going to be a choice of 42-year-old Jason Peters, who signed 3 weeks ago, or 6th round rookie Michael Jarrell. So it'd be interesting to see which direction they go there if Stone can't go. Of course, there are some Seahawk fans that say that they're kind of hoping that Stone Forsythe can't go the way he's performed the last few weeks. For the Falcons, they just ruled out, I want to know more about this, 2 of your linebackers, Troy Anderson and Lorenzo Carter, and then we're still waiting to hear more on Justin Simmons. He's been limited in practice and questionable for the game as well. The impact that may have on having those 2 linebackers out for this game.
Yeah, Anderson definitely probably will be felt more than Carter. Anderson, that's the 2nd straight game he missed, and that was coming off before he got hurt. It was the best game of his career, and he's definitely our legit 4-4 linebacker. He can sideline to sideline. He's really good in pass coverage. He's definitely gotten better in his run fits. He's had a lot. He's been, since we drafted him, he's been kind of hampered by injury as well. So he hasn't, I think, before his injury is, I think it's maybe his 10th start in the NFL, even though he's been in the league for 2 or 3 years. But yeah, he's definitely going to be missed as far as the pass game. And then Lorenzo Carter, good as far as decent against the run, set the edge. You know what you're going to get from him. He's not going to get to the actually, he did get to the quarterback last week, but didn't sack him. I guess he forgot what to do at that point. But it was.
We've had a few of those too.
Yeah, I mean, he averages around 3 a year. You're not going to get any crazy production from him. So we may see Brandon Dorless this week if he's activated, which we haven't seen him yet from Oregon. One of our rookie guys on the line.
Yeah.
So and James Smith-Williams has done a really good job defending the run this year too. We've been lacking in pass rush, like we said before the show. We've been missing pass. We're fifth. We have 5 sacks on the year. We're the worst in the league in sacks. Not a new place for us to be. We're kind of used to it. So, but the one thing, whether it's Stone or Jason Peters, who's, I can't believe he's my age and about to play possibly in the NFL, but and then like I said, the rookie is Judon typically lines up. Matthew Judon lines up on that right side. So maybe he can get some, some work to get to the quarterback this week. But but back to the guys. Anderson definitely be missed more than Carter for sure.
God, Anderson is a guy that I would have loved to have seen play. He was one of my draft crushes coming out a couple of years ago out of Montana. Guy that played quarterback early in his career and then made the transition.
And running back.
Just a super great athlete. Mm-hmm. One other thing I want to talk about is the good news now, as far as the Seahawks are concerned, who have just been ravaged with injuries on defense as a whole. Now it's the secondary, but a couple of weeks ago, of course, it was a defensive line. All 4 starters out for that Monday Night Football game against the Lions. They get Byron Murphy back this week, the first-round rookie, 16th pick overall out of Texas, was outstanding in the first 3 games of the year. They've sorely missed him. He talked yesterday. He's listed as questionable, but they put him in the podium yesterday. He's going to play, says he can't wait. He feels great. And he has a little bit of extra motivation to go against the Falcons because he had heard that he was under consideration for the Falcons pick at number 8. Was it 8 or 9?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And would have been the first defensive player off the board. Instead, they go with the quarterback, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But Murphy's saying he has a little extra motivation, which I find interesting because one of the most common comps for him coming out of Texas was Grady Jarrett. Do you see some similarities kind of in Murphy's game to what you've seen from Jarrett over the last 10 years?
Definitely. Yeah. And that's, I can tell you, personally on our podcast, and that was a guy we had our eye on that we were kind of like, hey, we were all shocked when Penix was drafted. Don't get me wrong. But that was a guy that we were like, hey, we would love to have this guy. Cause Grady's in his 10th year, we needed to have somebody to hopefully slide in there, which we may have gotten with our 2nd round pick and Rook. Yeah, I said that right, I think.
Also, crush of mine last year.
Yeah,
mostly
right.
because I just love saying his name. Right.
Right. Yeah, I finally got it right after like 17 times.
You just have to think about Scooby-Doo. And
that's it. That's it. Perfect. Yeah. Fine. But yeah, no, he's a guy that I think we would have loved to have had. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see him up against whether we have a backup center right now, Ryan Newsel, who's done a really, really good job. Like, honestly, I was talking with a buddy of mine earlier. We haven't really noticed a drop off from Drew Dahlman when he got hurt. He's been out on IR for about 3 weeks, and he stepped right in and just been amazing. So it's going to be Byron Murphy will be a different challenge for him for sure.
We'll be back in just a moment with more from John Yates. I want to get a couple of these in, just a couple of words. This episode brought to you by BetUS. Currently, the Seahawks 3-point underdogs in Atlanta. How do you like that? The over-under at 51. They expect a bit of a shootout in Georgia on Sunday. If you want to set up your account at BetUS today, they will give you a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, 125% on your second and third deposits up to $2,000. Just use promo code YouTube150 over at BetUS. This episode of Seahawks Forever also brought to you by the folks at Manscaped. Loved, known, trusted by over 11 million men worldwide. And their latest innovation, the Chairman Pro electric foil shaver. Guys, this has been a game changer for me. I have never been able to use an electric shaver. I gave up on it decades ago, just couldn't get a close enough shave. This one works. Why wait weeks for an appointment and pay all that money to get a professional shave when you can do it at home yourself with the Chairman Pro? And right now, you can get this product for 20% off plus free shipping over at manscaped.com with the promo code Seahawks. Back with John Yates of the Outta Your Falcon Mind podcast. If you're watching live, get your comments and questions in. We've got a few of them here queued up. We'll get to those in just a few minutes. Let's talk about that quarterback dynamic there. Certainly, we are familiar with Michael Penix here and what he did under Ryan Grubb at UW, getting all the way to the national championship game last year. Just a prolific passer. You mentioned it. Everyone was shocked when they drafted him in the top 10, especially considering that they had just signed Kirk Cousins to a lucrative contract at the latter stage of his career. It seemed awkward at first, but now, mostly because Cousins is playing so well since week 1, has that all quieted down, or is there still some underlying resentment that maybe that pick wasn't used at a place that could be put to a little better use right now?
Yeah, I think the fact that we're 4-2 and Kirk's playing so well, nobody cares anymore. And I think after a while, like I said, we had like a big draft show. It was us. We collabed with some other Falcons creators, and we were all just dumbfounded. We thought, okay, we got the pick of our best defensive player on the board right here. We're going to either go like Byron Murphy or go a corner or whatever. We had plenty of needs, and and then we heard that, and we just couldn't believe it. We just paid Kirk $180 million. I mean, granted, Kirk's contract essentially breaks down to almost a 2-year deal if you really want to break it down. So I mean, best case scenario, Kirk's winning and we're winning, and it's not even an issue. But I think since Matt Ryan, we went to Mariota and then Desmond Ritter, and I think the management was like, you know what, we are not doing this again. Like we really believe in Michael Penix. We know Kirk's on down. He's 36 years old. He's not going to be playing forever. If we can get Kirk in here, get a couple of good seasons, let Michael sit, learn, bring him right in. There's no boom. We're set for the quarterback for the next 10 years, best case scenario. So after the shock kind of wore off, we were like, you know what? Yeah, that kind of makes sense. And it is the most important position on the field, so I'm not going to argue with you. And I liked Penix a lot at Washington, liked what I saw. So yeah, it was definitely after the first game, there was definitely like, okay, well, you know what? Let's see what Penix has got. I mean, literally, some fans were like, Kirk's done. He doesn't have it anymore. And it was, well, he hasn't played football since October, like real football. So it was kind of him filling out that Achilles, seeing what he had going on there. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, we thought we might see him at the end of the Carolina game just to get in there and take a few snaps, but no dice.
Well, when Kurt looks around, he certainly loves what he sees, all the weapons there. And when Arthur Smith was running things there, probably his main undoing, I would think that you would agree, was the fact that he just didn't get that offense going, and in particular didn't get those weapons involved enough. We didn't see enough, we felt like, from Bijan Robinson as a rookie. Kyle Pitts has been kind of a mysterious sort of progression for him through his career. Do you get the feeling now, though, that Zach Robinson is making better use of that group of weapons?
100%. And Arthur's biggest problem was he picked the wrong quarterback. He put all his chips in with Desmond Ritter, and I mean, no diss to Desmond, but he's on the practice squad in Arizona now, I think. So I think once he realized what he could really get from that position, he was limited to what he could do. And because I started doing film study because it was getting to be really maddening to watch. And the fans would argue it's Arthur Smith, and they were like, it's Desmond Ritter. Like, who was at fault? So I was like, you know what, screw it. So around around the Minnesota game last year, I started doing film review. I was like, yeah, this is definitely both, but this is heavily more on the quarterback play. There was plays there that were seen, made, whether it's going through the progressions, just kind of just average quarterback play wasn't happening. So even if Arthur wanted to call different stuff and try to progress, I don't think he could have really worked, but with a quarterback like Kirk, who's been there, done that, seen everything, ran a similar system to what he's running now. There are some differences, from Kevin O'Connell, both from being from, the tree in Los Angeles,
sure.
But either way, it's been, you can tell each week. Yeah. I mean, he's developing more of a rapport with Drake London, and even with Kyle Pitts, like where he's starting to see him come alive some more. So it's definitely a better suited for this offense and these guys that we have, for sure.
Well, it seems to be coming together at first glance. You look at points per game, and Seattle and Atlanta are pretty even. Atlanta at 24.8, Seattle 24.3. But in their last 3 games, Atlanta has scored 100 points. So it's definitely trending in that direction. But yet not running the football as dominantly as they would hope to with Robinson and Algier. Although last week looked better, Algier seems to be getting more and more involved there. Yeah. That seems to be, to me, another similarity between these two teams, that they both have talked about wanting to establish a physical running game to complement and balance out their explosive passing attack. And yet both teams have had trouble really getting that going. The Seahawks notoriously last week telegraphed the fact they were going to try to run the football on Thursday night against the 49ers, and then went out on their first 4 opportunities and went run, pass. Didn't exactly work, and they were in a big hole early. Do you expect to see them try to get that running game going, or is it just going to be a case of whatever the Seahawks are willing to give them on Sunday?
Yeah, I think ideally they would love to get the run game going, because that's going to be, that's what we've always said. If we could get, last week was almost the blueprint in our eyes, at least. Bijan, I think, had 15 or 18 carries, and Tyler had 15 or 18. One had 15, one had 18. We went over 200 yards rushing. it's tough to beat a team when they can run that efficiently, and you're on the field a lot, you're controlling the ball. And when you have a good quarterback, that's going to make smart decisions for the most part. It makes it tough on the defense. But yeah, I mean, ideally we could definitely, that would be, perfect case scenario. But I mean, we've seen against Tampa Bay, Todd Bowles was like, you guys are not going to run the ball. And Kirk was like, okay, I'll throw for 500 yards. And he did, and then next week, it was the exact opposite. We went for 200 rushing yards. So it's cool to see that we could actually be successful at both, because that's something that we're not used to here over the last few years, of being able to throw the ball with any success whatsoever. So that's definitely a plus. But yeah, I can definitely see they're going to adjust to whatever Seattle's plan is. So that if Seattle tries to take away the run, you might see the Kirk Cousins show again. So.
Seahawks fans are excited about the opportunity to play in a dome, because Geno Smith's career record in domes is outstanding. But they announced yesterday they're going to have the roof open at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Is there any noticeable difference in atmosphere that you've noticed there at the stadium when the roof is open versus closed?
Not really. Clearly when it's closed, the loudness can obviously be a little bit more, for opposing teams to be more of a pain in the butt. But it should be a really nice day in Atlanta. I think we're around 65 degrees today. We're probably aiming for that probably on Sunday as well, nice and sunny. So it should be an awesome day with that wise. But yeah, no, atmosphere wise, not a ton of difference, to be honest with you.
All right, let's see what we got in the comments and questions for you. New member, Michael Faucet, thanks for signing up and subscribing to the channel. Appreciate that. Let's see. What do we got here? Let's just kind of roll through here. Season is on the line in Atlanta. If they lose, and the focus will be on what they do to prepare for next year and thereafter. I feel that the opening 3 wins set expectations too high for reality. How do you think the Falcons fans feel about this Seahawks team on Sunday? Are they feeling pretty confident that this is a winnable game?
Yeah, I think we feel it's a winnable game, but I honestly, at least the folks that I talk to, we all think it's going to be, a 1-score game either way. I don't think it's going to be a blowout or any 2-score game by any stretch of the imagination. Like you said, the teams are so similar. If Seattle could run the ball successfully against us, and honestly, it's going to come down to who makes the most mistakes, who can force somebody to make a turnover. There hasn't been too many QBs who have tested Jesse Bates and Simmons deep down the field this year. We've hardly anybody's thrown deep on down center of the field. So it's been a lot of short stuff, intermediate, sidelines all year long. And DK's had a really good career against AJ Terrell. But we are playing more of a zone type, cover 6 type scheme, at least for the most part this year. So that may work into it as well. But I can definitely, it's so tight. I mean, and as Falcons fans too, we never get super confident because we're always waiting for like some other shoe to drop that, it's like, man, this is going really well, but this could really turn, sideways. But, and Kirk, as good as he's been, he will throw the ball away, he will throw it up sometimes when he shouldn't, and throw a pick. I think he's got 5 on the year, right behind Geno, I think, who's got 6. So, I mean, both these guys, they trust their arms sometimes, maybe too much. But, I still think it's going to be a close one.
It's just remarkable. Like, the more I look at it, the more I think, these teams could probably just share a game plan, right? Like both offenses are going to come out and try to run the football because the opposing defenses haven't been able to stop the run, and they're trying to establish that. Both quarterbacks are perfectly capable of throwing it 50 times and throwing it all over the yard. So, at the end of the day, we could still see a shootout, despite the fact that both these teams want to establish the line of scrimmage a little bit. This is a funny little stat here. Jason Peters is 20 years older than Byron Murphy.
That's wild, yeah.
Hawks fan Matt Man, Outta Your Falcon Mind rivals over Dwayne Bowe is my favorite football-related podcast title.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, I like that. Jayanth thinks it's going to be tough to beat the Falcons at their home. I'll tell you, they need to. If they fancy themselves, the Seahawks fancy themselves as any kind of a playoff contender, this feels like a game that they have to win, because then, like I said, you go into the Bills, and then you get Rams after that, and then you get back into the Cardinals and the 49ers after the bye. It's going to be really, really tough if we don't get this one, especially because it would drop us to 0-4 in NFC games, which it starts to stack out. You can only say it's early in the season so many times, right? At a certain point, it becomes the season.
Oh yeah, well, we're used to doing like some kind of crazy calculus down here to figure out how we're going to get into the playoffs. like late in the year, like if this team loses and this team wins and this
Right.
team ties, we might have a chance to get in.
Yeah.
So yeah,
All right.
I did see a funny stat though.
Yeah.
Daniel Flick, who's a writer for Falcons SI, this kind of encapsulates our pass defense at least, right? Falcons have allowed completions on 73.2% of the opposing passes, which is the highest number in the NFL. But ironically, they rank number 6 in yards per completion, 6.3, and number 9 in passing defense total, 193 yards per game. So it's literally between the 20s, take all you want. And then we decide to bow up inside the red zone and, force a field goal, which again is great. But, you're gonna run into a team eventually that's going to not settle for field goals, and, you're going to be down, because that's the unfortunate part of our defense. Sometimes we'll allow these 6-7 minute drives, and that puts that much more pressure on your offense to go out there. And then the few opportunities they get to actually score, we've only outpossessed a team one time this year, and it was the Bucs in the overtime game. And every other team we've been 5-10 minutes under, even with in the wins, even under time of possession. So it's just wild how we've pulled these off a few times.
Well, now tell me this. I've obviously seen some of the comebacks and the late game heroics this year that this Falcons team has kind of built their identity on. How are they at the beginning of games? Because this has been an issue for the Seahawks, especially on offense. It's just starting off the game poorly, trying to force certain things in the game plan in that opening script, and not getting things going until later in the game. How have the Falcons been at starting games?
Mostly good. You take out the Pittsburgh game, and even last week against Carolina, the first few drives or at least the first drive was just it was weird. It was just kind of herky jerky. Didn't seem like they had a good plan. Against the Saints, against the Bucs, who came out fast, scored, had really good first halves, and that's kind of they're trying to get up on teams early so they can be more aggressive. But that's. And what I've seen on the Seahawks is they've looked kind of flat. I don't know why. Like the first, defensively at least, coming out, just looks a little flat the first few times. I mean, that could, if that happens this week, that could be an issue, especially with, the fans and whatnot as well. Yeah,
certainly. I'm interested to see just if they, and you may be onto something. I mean, that 3 games in 11 days was so brutal. Yeah. You're only doing walkthroughs basically for that 2-week stretch. I think that's one of the things Seahawks fans will have their eyes on the most closely on Sunday is this team going to come out and look fresh and look energized, right? Look like a team that has their backs against the wall a little bit. And tell me if this was the case in Atlanta too. And again, you're 4-2, so everyone's pretty happy right now. But in the offseason, did you experience this too? Because what we had seen is that there was so much optimism around the hire. There was so much buzz, and there was so many accolades about Mike Macdonald that by the time training camp rolls around, you talk yourself into the fact that this is the second coming of Bill Belichick, right? We've solved all of our problems with this head coaching hire. How were expectations for the Falcons among their fan base going into the season? Was it kind of just open-minded and let's see what happens? Or were they expecting that this was Morris was going to be the elixir, help them turn the corner a little bit?
Yeah, I think the combination of Morris, having Cousins, drafting Penix, and then right before the season going and signing Matt Judon and Justin Simmons.
Yeah.
That was really, those 2 signings put everybody overboard, because I was doing a pretty good job of keeping even kill. And then we signed those 2 guys. I'm like, oh, well, that's all we needed on defense. We're good to go now.
Right.
But so no, it was a lot of optimism. It was, I think every Falcons fan, at least on our show, that comes in the chat, like basically saying if we don't win a division, it's a failure this year, because the South being I think everybody kind of overlooks the Bucs, and the Bucs are a good team, so we shouldn't overlook the Bucs. But that's kind of that's how fans will be, but especially against a division rival. But we were all optimistic. I think the least schedule prediction that we saw was like a 9-8. Most people were 10-7, 11-6. There was even a few 12-5s in there, that we thought that we could possibly do. So, ton of optimism, to say the least. Yeah.
I started out that way and then let myself get a little too excited. Yeah.
Same. Yeah.
After I was, I viewed the Monday night game against the Lions as one of those losses you feel good coming out of, right? Mm-hmm. And actually did an updated schedule prediction show and had us going 12-5, which 7 days later, I looked pretty silly for doing that.
No, I get it. Yeah. I mean, because we were, Yeah, we're right
They'd
there
have
with
to
you.
want a historic run now to make that happen. But
Yeah, and it's like my podcast partner, he was saying on the last show, it's like we were so hyped, but then just totally ignored the fact that the guys really played none during preseason, even though they tell us, hey, they're getting these reps. That's just as important. These scrimmage reps are just as important, which we all know that's not.
right.
Then we get into the first week, and then we're like, hey, why is this not gelling? We're all expecting them to be just like right off the rip, just scoring points. It's like, no, that's not how it's going to work. I mean, we have a new offensive coordinator for the first time calling plays. We've got Kirk, who hasn't touched the ball in 12, almost a year, as far as real gameplay. So it was kind of a reset for a lot of Falcons fans to go, you know what, this may take some time. Hopefully we get through this first stretch 3-3. That's what I hoped. I was like, if we go 3-3 through these first 6 games, we'll be in a pretty good spot, and I mean, barring a insane pass interference against Kyle Pitts in the Chiefs game, we could have maybe even been 5-1. But it's we shot ourselves in the foot so many times in that game, so it's a whole other story. But yeah, I mean, definitely more optimism now, and with 4-2 now hitting into this, I think I said they're still optimistic, and most realistic Falcons fans though, still the stretch we're coming up on Seahawks, Bucks, and then I think we have the Cowboys after that. I know the Cowboys are all over the place, but it's still, there's that kind of cautious optimism, I guess you could say. You don't want to get too over the heavy.
Well, John, I appreciate your time, man. I think this is going to be a really entertaining game on Sunday and an important one for both teams. That's John Yates from the Outta Your Falcon Mind podcast. You guys have anything coming up between now and the game on Sunday?
Let's see. No, not between the game. We'll do probably a post-game show after the game. Typically, it depends. Sometimes it depends on how we're feeling. If we're too emotional, we like to take a day. You know what I mean? So we'll take a day depending on how this game goes.
After the 49ers game. Yep.
Yeah. So you have to sometimes. I mean, yeah, because I try to tweet during the games when I can, and folks are used to seeing some emotional craziness from me during the game. So after the game, if it's still that way, I'm like, you know what, I need to sit on this for a day and then we'll talk about it tomorrow. But if it's depending on how this outcome goes, it'll either be Sunday or Monday. We'll be talking about it. But yeah, Dan, I really appreciate you having me on, man. We'll definitely have to do it again when we lock up again.
Yeah, when we play in the playoffs, right?
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Absolutely.
All right, John. Thanks. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks, Dan.
Talk to you soon. All right, you guys. Appreciate you tuning in on that one, chipping in with your comments and questions. All the different ways you can support the show are down below in the description. You can follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever. And I will be back Sunday after the game, do a live post-game reaction to the Seahawks and Falcons. Maybe something tomorrow. We'll see how the injury news goes and if there's anything new to react to. Other than that, we'll see you on Sunday. I'm Dan. This is Seahawks Forever. Thanks for tuning in. As always, shout out to the folks at BetUS for sponsoring this. Forever and always, go Hawks.